All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are very excited to have you. Welcome to the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors webinar. I'm going to introduce today our Diversity Committee Chair, Annette Collier. Annette, good morning. Thank you for joining us today, hosting or moderating this presentation. So I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining this morning. Our audience, we'll have a large audience. I think most of you probably know who I am, but I am serving as the chair for the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors Diversity Committee, DEI, and my co-chair is Emily Wang, and hopefully she will be joining us as well. I've been in the business since, man, it's been like 35 years. I started off as an investor. And then in 1997, I became licensed as a real estate agent and joined the Greater Philadelphia Association of Realtors. During that period of time, I have been on the grievance committee. I served as the chair for DEI and RPAC and all of those great things. So I'm happy that you all are here to join us this morning. I want to introduce our speakers, but before I do that, I want to remind everybody that this is Hispanic Heritage Month, which is September the 15th to October the 15th, and we're joined by special guest Jason Riveiro and also Luis Rojas. So thank you very much. I think we have some other people joining as well. So let me get started with Jason. Is it Riveiro? Is that how I should pronounce?
Yes, that's right, Riveiro.
Okay, thank you so much. He is the executive director and chief operating officer for NAHREP. And he also serves as senior director of industry relations at Notarized and held notable roles at Realogy, including head of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and vice president of global affiliate services. Luis Rojas, he started his banking career in 2007 and shifted his focus to mortgage lending in 2015. He joined Fulton Mortgage Bank, a division of Fulton Bank, in 2023 as a CRA mortgage loan officer. He provides mortgage services to the northern and central areas of New Jersey. He's 2023 president of the local South Jersey NAHREP chapter. So really want to thank you all for joining and to give us some updates as to what's going on with NAHREP. So thank you very much. I want to turn it over to Jason.
Excellent. Thank you, Annette. Thank you, Brittany, for hosting us this morning. So today I'm going to jump right into a combination of our two reports that we put out every year. So now in its 13th year, our State of Hispanic Homeownership report, and then I'll share with you a broader discussion on wealth so that we produce. It's called the State of Hispanic Wealth. We've been doing this for about 10 years as well. And this really talks about really the key drivers in wealth building. We believe, we know obviously home ownership is crucial, but there are other factors that we evaluate, including entrepreneurship and diversification of wealth. So I'm going to pull my screen up here. So as I mentioned, the three component goals of our foundation are focused on homeownership, entrepreneurship, and savings and investment. So the primary goal, and all these three goals, as a matter of fact, we're releasing our updated State of Hispanic Wealth report here in November. We launched a preview of it last week, but we believe that we've probably likely hit a lot of these goals. These are based on the Federal Reserve's trajectory and projections that they have. So that report will be released here within the next few weeks, and we will do our own analysis and put out the report during our wealth symposium, actually happening in DC next month in November. So the first one being that we would reach the homeownership rate of 50% or greater. That is obviously a very important part of this. We'll talk a lot about the rate of Hispanic homeownership. really the goal of helping Latino businesses scale and have over 400,000 Hispanic employer firms. So what we find is that Latinos are by far very entrepreneurial and are starting businesses at a faster rate than any demographic. But yet it's really the scalability, the opportunity for them to grow and employ other individuals. That's a big component goal. And then savings and investment. Unfortunately, our community has the lowest rate of participation when it comes to savings and investments and diversification of wealth. So that is certainly a big part of our focus. So the wealth gap, I think, can be analyzed in a lot of different ways. When we look at the significance that we see, and as we know, there's a big gap that exists among many of the communities out there. For Latinos, that spread is about $153,000 between Latinos and non-Hispanic whites. But on the positive side is that we've seen this continue to grow over the past 10 years, where we've seen that pace has gone by 138%, so faster than the overall general population in terms of wealth generation and building. So we want to continue this momentum, and a lot of this having to do, as we know, with the equity that we've seen, that many of us have seen over the past few years. This is a big part of Latinos very much value homeownership and have seen that appreciation grow. But we still have a long way to go, as I noted prior to that, compared to the general population and, of course, the non-Hispanic white population. When we look at entrepreneurship, as I mentioned, is another area of opportunity. This graph really articulates how quickly, in terms of the gap, in terms of the opportunity in Latinos, really how far outpacing various other demographics in the creation of new business and employer firms. So this is certainly something that we want to continue to emphasize. This is what we do as an organization ourselves when we talk about the focus for our members. Particularly, it's helping them scale their businesses, helping them to retain wealth, to understand those business fundamentals are very crucial. As you know, within real estate, we can be very good practitioners, but sometimes fail at the structuring of our own businesses and our own finances. The third component, of course, was the diversification of assets. And in this chart, I think here really outlines as well here at the bottom of the chart where Latinos are participating at very low levels. So we have these discussions ourselves. We know that real estate is very tangible. So I think Latinos tend to really invest within real estate, and even our own members, right? We invest in what we know. So we've created a few different initiatives to help us not only diversify those efforts, but to teach the broader community. And I'll talk about those. So now let me focus in on homeownership itself, based off of the homeownership report that we have, so that you continue to have these studies. So we are coming on over 8 years of continuous growth in the Hispanic homeownership rate. So this is certainly a positive. When we look at the impact that we've had of high interest rates, it is really impressive knowing that we've moved into a purchase market, and Latinos and including also African Americans are really driving first-time homeownership. They're driving those transactions. And so by far, Latinos are the largest single gain that we've seen over the last 10 years in terms of the home ownership rate, but also household formation. So you have to look at, what's the reason and that we have these growth. So there's some key components that I think you look at why Latinos are growing is one, of course, the household formations that we've seen, the largest of any group. It's almost double that of non-Hispanic whites. And so what we see is, where are we going to see the continuation of growth for this country? Latinos are a big factor of that. You also looked at age as another factor, right? 30 years compared to 38 compared to the general population. That is another reason why, as you see that this population is moving into its prime home buying years. And so Latino buyers tend to be a lot younger. We see that actually the largest share of people that are 25 years old are Latinos as well. So that's been inculcated, I think, within our community, the importance of homeownership. And so we want to continue to make that happen in our efforts. If you look at really the significance of this, I like to liken, I think the Latino cohort is really just as powerful as what we saw with baby boomers. And you look at the age impact, and you look at the differentiation here. When you look at age, this is kind of how it breaks down in terms of the youthfulness of that. This is an opportunity to really focus in on. And it's really even more apparent when you look at originations. If you look at that age bracket between 25 and 44, look at the percentage of originations of Latinos in the 25 to 44 range. That's a huge number, right? Over 63% of those originations are coming from the Latino community. So I think it's interesting, though, because we have a lot of these factors. We talk about the movement that we're seeing in the community, but the affordability is very much an issue. So we put together a list of markets and where we've seen the impact change over the past few years. And Latinos tend to live in very expensive markets already, right? So that is affordability is certainly a big issue to our community. It impacts more than any other community because we tend to be in these large urban areas. And so the change in monthly payments has certainly impacted this community. There's a lot of demand there. We also know that there's over close to 8 million Latinos that are mortgage ready. And this is a definition that Freddie Mac put together, really basically taking credit scores that are out there over 660 and their DTI, those factors, and have come up with that number. So this is certainly a very large cohort ready to purchase. So, this is hard to read, but this is something I can share with the team. I mean, and they can kind of email to everybody if they want. But we also outlined 25 of the most important markets out there now, and we've seen where the growth is. And these are the non-traditional markets. So these are opportunities where we find that it's more welcoming for Latinos to come in. And a lot of these are non-traditional markets, right? These are places that Latinos are moving into. Their affordability is there, and the availability in the housing stock. So we rank the biggest opportunity markets to share for Latinos. The third factor, so we talked about age, we talked about household formation. I think it's also another kind of cultural nuance to consider is how really how large the share of multi-generational households. And what this means is, sharing generations into a household and the impact that that's going to have when you're serving these communities, not just from the real estate side, but also on the lending side, having multi-signers, having that kind of cultural nuance is certainly something that you have to really consider when serving this community. And I think that that's going to continue to evolve. I think that because of affordability, I think this will also be something that not just Latinos are going to be faced with, but other types of demographics that because of affordability, you're going to see more multi-generational households living together and purchasing homes together. So that's really a recap of it. I went over a high level. I wanted to take some time on that, but I'll share some links here in the chat for both those and then our Wealth Drivers report as well, so that you can have that as a takeaway. So happy to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Jason, for that presentation. I have one of my questions is, do you believe that there's enough marketing so that those Latinos who are eligible are aware of the different grant opportunities that various areas may be providing so that more home ownership can be created?
Well, I think that's a factor that the whole industry, I think, is fed. I think even us, realtors certainly also need help kind of figuring out what's out there. There's so many programs. It's a little bit overwhelming, certainly. I know that some of the GSEs are working to kind of consolidate that, right? I think Freddie has a tool, down payment assist, a DP1, I think, where you can search a lot of the down payment programs that are available out there. There certainly is. I think education is certainly a factor. But there is also, I think that the industry is starting to go back to its fundamentals. During the COVID days, I think transactions came very easily, but I think that those that serve this market well are certainly people that are passionate about first-time home buyers. They take their time with them, and it's not going to be a quick transaction, right? It's going to be a transaction that will take some time, but ultimately it's going to be very fruitful, because when you talk about loyalty, when you talk about repeat business, this is a community that very much favors that. And so it is a good investment to make, but it's not going to be, I think, the one-off transactions, right, that we've been used to as an industry.
Thank you.
I have a question, Jason. So you mentioned about multi-generational housing. Can you explain a little bit about why that might be more unique to Hispanic, to the Hispanic community?
Well, a family, I mean, is a cliche in terms of, when we talk about this, but it certainly is true. It is a family nucleus. And so that is certainly something part of that. I think, when you look at things that, let's say retirement homes and things like those are not necessarily, retirement homes aren't necessarily as prevalent in Latin America or, in Mexico as maybe here in the US. And so you take care of your elderly at home, when you can. And I think that's a big part of that, right? The multi-generational households. So that, yeah, it's simple as that. I think I find that, but also I think you have, the birth rate is certainly, it plays into that. There are more individuals in the home, and people are pooling their resources together. And we're not the only ones, I think, that are part of that. I think there are other communities as well that have multi-generational households. But I think we play a large share of that as a community.
Do you find that the housing stock right now is well set up? Or, I mean, low inventory is a problem, I think, nationally. But in terms of housing stock, do we have the kind of housing options that people need when it comes to accommodating a multi-generational, living situation? Or, do we need to, how do we I'm just wondering if that's difficult to find.
It is tough, right? When you're talking about places like the East Coast, ADUs are a big conversation right now on the West Coast in California. But Latinos are very mobile. That's why I looked at those 10%. I think mobility is a big important factor. I think Latinos are willing to move if necessary into markets where affordability is there, where work is there. So I think that ends up happening. People are going to, even where I live, in Ohio, we're seeing a tremendous jump, continuous battle for inventory here as well. So yeah, and we certainly aren't prepared as a nation, but I think certain parts of the country are even more prone to it just because of the way that those properties were developed, or city planning, however you want to blame it on. But I think, yes, it's not a normal factor.
Just as a follow-up to that, so one of the questions that we have, and this is of particular interest to me as our government affairs director, but what does NAHREP's advocacy look like, either at a national or state by state kind of perspective? Like, what are the issues that
Certainly, yeah. I mean, we have
energy?
very much aligned, I think, when it comes to the trade associations. So work very closely with our other partner organizations, with NAR, and certainly a lot of areas impacting the community. We of course align on fair housing, that we sign on some of the issues that have risen this past year, and it comes around appraisals. On the trade side as well, I think for us, the big issues that we're focused on is really the affordability when it comes to the lending space. We feel that that our communities, Latino and Black borrowers, are bearing more costs than even just the overlays that are necessary to address risk within the borrowing process. And I think that lenders, especially independent mortgage bankers, are actually the ones that are really serving this community more than a lion's share of that. So we see that a lot of our community goes to independent mortgage bankers. We want to make sure that those banks and those lenders that are really serving our community aren't having to pay more costs than is necessary, especially in the secondary market and certain such other areas. So it's not about removing risk, the risk factors and the risk tolerance. It's more so unnecessary overlays that we see to ultimately make it easier to do business in this market. So that's certainly something that we're focused on in a lot of different ways, working with the GSEs, working with the regulators in those areas.
You mentioned that the secondary lenders, do you think that more of the Hispanic buyers are doing FHA, any kind of government financing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a very large part of that. We used to joke around and say that it was called for Hispanic Americans. So, but
Oh, that's great.
I'm curious as to whether or not some of the homeowners are utilizing the grants that are out there. I just want to make sure that Black and brown people are aware of the grants to help bring their costs down. Like in Philadelphia, you can get almost $100,000 in grants to make it affordable for you to buy. So I don't know. I know you're in Ohio, so I don't know if you guys have any programs like that, even if it's not 100,000, but
yeah, a lot of states have different programs. I think the special purpose credit programs that a lot of lenders are rolling out right now, I think are getting a lot of excitement. But I think because they range in terms of the rules, I think, yeah, there's plenty more of education that can be done.
Yeah.
I have another question. So when it comes to, working as a real estate professional or a real estate agent, what are some of the barriers to entrance into this profession? Like if are language barriers, for example, some of the state forms that either the agreements of sale or whatever, a lot of them are all English. Has NAHREP been involved with trying to get more of that converted into or translated into Spanish? And what happens if you don't in your office have Spanish speaking agents? What is NAHREP encouraging agents to do about that?
Yeah, so I think there's two areas that you kind of bring up there, because of course, language is not necessary. I mean, that can be a part of our community, right? I mean, as a factor. I just put in here in the chat, we have a glossary that we put together. This was actually a committee that put this. This is not just industry terms, but more colloquialisms as well. So just the way that people would normally talk. So this is a free glossary that practitioners can use. But I think that there's a lot of positive growth in this area. Certainly, I think the next big way of how we change the industry is certainly through the people that serve this community. So in the practitioners, right now, we just at 10% of NAR members are Latino. We've starting to see that shift. Obviously, the new generations, Black and Latinos, are driving new membership at NAR. So that's starting to change. So for years, it's been over 80% would have been non-Hispanic white on the NAR side. So we need more. We need more Latinos joining the ranks, especially also on the lending side, not just from an LO perspective, but also in origination and on the back end. It's very important to have that cultural understanding and the nuances of that.
Has there
So-
been anything to try to recruit those people? So for example, Fannie Mae, and I don't know if they've reached out to NAHREP, but they are reaching out to the historically Black college and universities to try to get them, for example, involved in the appraisal industry. But then on the Pennsylvania side, the Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, they got a grant from HUD, which one of our older realtors members, Michelle Lewis, she has a housing counseling agency called Northwest Housing Counseling. And so she was given this grant to help people as an entry level get certified as housing counselors. But we don't want it to stop there. So we wanted to disperse out. Let me close this door. Whether it be urban planners, like you said, loan officers, architects, you know, the whole nine, primarily so that we can see the diversity, and per the call that we're having now, that there will be legacy in talking about what is happening in the Hispanic community. Without that, if we don't have a future, so there has to be a drive for that. So I'm just curious as to whether or not NAHREP has reached out to universities where there is a Latino population.
No, we currently don't have that. That doesn't mean that our local chapters are involved in some way in that effort. You know, we're very focused on the practitioner, and we believe that giving them the resources, helping them grow their business, helping them grow their skills, that they're ultimately going to be going to impact the community and attract more people. I think that that's why we've seen that evolution. We've seen a lot more people joining the ranks. And it also behooves the big brands and businesses that are out there to do that, right? To attract that talent and to develop that next generation. But currently we don't have a like a university program or anything around that end.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jason, I have 2 questions. First, well, I guess what trends are you guys seeing as far as like migration, population throughout the country? Are they staying placed like where they're getting stationed at, like warm weather climates? Are they getting, are you seeing volatility with them moving around to like more northeastern cities where it's colder, northwestern cities where it's colder? But what kind of trends are you seeing there in that respect?
Yeah, so Carl, in our chart there, we did we listed out kind of our top 25 markets where that's happening. So we have that in our report. You can see where a lot of these markets that are non-traditional, maybe some smaller markets where people are moving to, you know, that are on here on this chart here. So let me put it here. I'll put it in, and actually you can look at the page where that's listed out.
And then my second question is, you know, I know at the state level and at the local level with the boards, you know, they're creating more campaigns where they're helping realtors kind of like, you know, access pipelines into politics, local politics, state politics, federal politics, and, you know, become legislators, state reps, council people. Is NAHREP doing any of that advocacy or, you know, establishing similar pipelines within the local chapters and, you know,
Yes,
things
actually,
of that nature?
yeah, that's a good tee up. We actually have a focus on that. We have a national advocacy committee. About 3,000 of our members are involved in that, and so these are individuals that we respond to on local issues that we can mobilize to you know, to write letters, to attend and to testify, to speak before their community councils, whatever we need them to do. And then we do have a program, our NAHREP alumni, where we focus on talking to them about public service. We have several of our members that are very involved. We have someone that is now mayor of a city. We have people that are council members. So yeah, it's been a great emphasis. We have one of our board members right now actually running for office in Boston. So it's nice to kind of see that and encouraging our members to do that.
Okay, it's great to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
One of my last questions for you, Jason, how does immigration policy influence what you do at NAHREP? Are you involved with that? I know there's been a lot of conversations lately at the national level about what to do about immigration, and it's a broken system. How does that impact you and your members? So
great question. We are obviously pro-immigration, obviously, and pro in immigration in terms of when we talk about reform. We certainly believe that it should be done through the legal channels, but we also understand that the system does need to be revisited. It is flawed and it is broken. And so unfortunately, we haven't been having those conversations. What is interesting, though, is that now, currently, as polarizing as things are in Washington, the business interests of this subject are really aligned, right? So when we talk about the supply issue, a big part of supply, when we talk about housing supply, is labor related, right? And Latinos play an overwhelming portion of the labor in the construction industry. So we're aligned when it comes to the National Association of Home Builders, them driving, immigration reform, and the importance of having that kind of that kind of labor for housing is so very important. We actually last week we launched a national construction trade association, so that to address this issue head on. We just hired a CEO to focus in on that. So you're going to see chapters around the country launch, focus on Hispanics in construction, helping them with their business capabilities, helping address issues around labor and immigration reform and such. And so we see it as a business opportunity. We see it that is really how we can remain competitive as a nation if we do it the right way and we work together across the aisle on this issue. But it's certainly not an easy conversation to have. It's difficult for many people, but it is the way that we look at it as really an economic impact to our country.
Jason, you mentioned, did you say a National Trade Association?
Yeah, so we just launched the National Hispanic Construction Alliance,
Okay.
NHCA. I can put the link here as well.
Very smart move.
Um,
From a government perspective, it seems as though there's a lot. I was on a call with the NAACP the other night, and there's a lot of focus in regards to unions and the different trade associations. So I commend your organization for taking this on. The other question I have is, do you have a political action committee as well?
We do not.
Okay.
We've discussed it, but we do not.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Annette, do you want to switch gears and talk, to Louis? I know he's one of our other featured speakers today about maybe the local perspective. As the president of the South Jersey chapter, I feel like you have more of a grasp here on what is impacting maybe Pennsylvania, New Jersey members and what you guys are seeing.
Sure. So I guess I'll cry the same song we all do. It's just the lack of inventory. I think that's the really big thing nowadays. We don't have as much homes being built in the last, I would say, 10 years than they were before. So that is a constant issue where we're trying to get the Black and brown buyers homes, because there's a lack of homes out there, and obviously, sometimes depending on where they're at, they can't live there because it's too far away from their job, or it's in another state. So for an example, I have a lot of my clients from Puerto Rico moving to Philadelphia, trying to buy a house in Philadelphia because they got a professor role in the universities over there. And they're saying is their income is there, it's just the inventory isn't there. And if they were to buy, it would have to be somewhere in Bucks County, and they don't want to do the drive. And that's a situation a lot of my realtors on my board and myself have been seeing.
Great. Can you also tell us how to join your organization?
Sure. You can look up at NAHREP southnewjersey.org. I'll put in the link in the chat. If there's another chapter closer to you, I would always suggest to join that chapter. I would always say I would love for everybody to join my chapter, but I can't be that greedy. So I just put the link out there. But it's a great way, especially if we're trying to open something in Philadelphia, to kind of learn how to do and run a chapter. So once that happens, we'll start advocating, especially in our chapter. We have a government affairs director And you touched a point about our contracts being a different language. Actually, my government affairs director got us in contact with someone in New Jersey to start changing the contracts in different languages, not just Spanish, but in other languages. So we had that local level conversation. So now we're trying to help out Philadelphia, but I don't know how it is with you guys, but sometimes they're a little delayed on returning our phone calls. So we're working on a local level, just making sure that our borrowers or buyers are feeling comfortable signing these documents.
And what type of membership do you have? Like, is it only real estate agents that can join, or what type of members?
It's open to everybody. Everybody that's in the I would say real estate practitioner. I was going to say it in Spanish and came out wrong. Practitioner. Anybody that wants to grow in the business or just understand, because we like to educate everybody. But it is a realtor-based organization, so we want realtors, right? We want lenders, we want title, we want attorneys, we want anybody that wants to buy a house, build generational wealth. It's open to everyone. But the different levels, there's one that supports the local chapters, which is a standard membership. And there's a one that's called Platinum, which you can be a member to all of the chapters and go to all of the chapter events and pay their membership price.
Do you have any upcoming events?
We do. We have one in November. The beautiful thing about South Jersey is that there's a lot of wineries, so we're taking advantage of the environments. So we may have our next one in another winery, because why not?
Okay. How do we make people aware? Do you have a date or location or anything yet?
They can look at our website. Our website's usually up to date. We just have to kind of work out some dates. So I think it will show October 18th, but it should really be in November. But we just have to change some stuff on our website. But yeah.
Okay. And any type of community outreach programs that you may have done or are considering doing in the future?
Community outreach, I always advocate our directors to do Habitat for Humanities or other local not-for-profits. Myself, I go to local not first-time homebuyers to make sure there's transparency within the Black and brown communities. Because we talk about lenders being out there and helping people, but sometimes they charge a little bit more because they can't do certain things. So I would always be aware of local programs that not just mortgage brokers have, but banks have, because there's a lot of need, especially in the banking space, since I've been a banker for most of my life, that they want those type of mortgages in certain areas. So they're willing to do and put out special programs just for that.
Louis, as with your background, on the lending and banking side, and mortgages, are you aware of, special purpose, I think they're called credit programs or loans, that might be accessible to people either in Philadelphia or South Jersey? Do you recommend any, specifically that you're aware of?
Yeah, I know in Philly, the Urban League is very big. So I would suggest you speak with the counselor in the Urban League. I was actually with the presentation with him and Freddie Mac the other day, maybe about a month ago. So Urban League is a big initiative, especially in Philly. There's also local banks that they can look up and the Urban League will show you what banks have certain products and who they work with. So I think in Philadelphia, I think Truist is coming over there, and they're working with their local communities.
Okay, awesome. And some of the other questions, what are the benefits of NAHREP, of joining NAHREP?
There's a lot. I would say there's a lot of benefits. It's a great collaboration of the entrepreneurial spirit within each other. Especially I always say it's a rally cry, because you get to share success stories with other people and how you've done things successfully. Like, we have some top realtors and originators that hit the units in the 1,000 marks, and everybody wants 1,000 units. So we always have that great conversation of how do we work smart, not harder, right? We also had a government affairs boot camp. I think Jason probably mentioned that in our national conference we had last week. it was a great opportunity to see what we can advocate for our community, what we can do, and what their successes was in reaching out to the politicians and our local governments and our local senators. So it's an educational thing. I would always say every organization is a gym-based membership. You can't really blame the gym if you're not going to the gym that you're gaining weight. You have to go and be a participant. You have to be passionate, and you have to be in the moment.
I love that. I'm gonna adopt that. And one of my last questions for you, Louis, what are some of your objectives as a local chapter president? Did you come into this knowing, like, you have top 3 priorities, or have you just kind of been like taking everything? It's a big year. I mean, there's a lot going on. So, what have you had objective wise?
I was blessed with the position of president. I really didn't have a goal in mind, but what I always advocate for myself as a lender and real estate is transparency. Making sure that people have multiple options and different products. Not everybody's going to have the same thing. So make sure that whatever we put our clients into makes sense for them. Educating our realtors on and real estate practitioners on different avenues of building generational wealth. Real estate is a great stepping stone, but I also have a financial background where we invest and we, there's different ways of building passive income. I think education and transparency were my 2 big things. My third thing is building more organically, having the support for other chapters like AREA and other organizations like GPAR to help us grow within ourselves and spread the education on the knowledge that we have to everybody in our communities.
Okay. Annette, did you have any final questions for Louis?
No, I wanted to, first of all, thank you for your time. I know I've had the pleasure of being in your company a few times, and all of those events were very successful, good turnouts. And I met some NAHREP members that not just do residential, they do commercial. So it's a very diversified group. And I think professionally, we have to look at options, right? So in Philadelphia, and I know Carlos is familiar with this, there are several building associations. Urban Association of Builders or something like that, Rick Young's organization. And the encouragement from, go ahead, Carlos.
Sorry, I'm not.
Oh, okay. So that there are more Black and brown developers. So there are some realtors that are looking at that as options, and some, like Carlos, have also participated in that world. So I think if we don't have it, so in NAHREP, we say we got to build it. So one of the things that we're doing is a campaign called Build the Block, and we're encouraging people to become developers. We're offering the classes as well. So, when you speak about education, I think we've got to look at not just the residential existing homes, but also creating the homes,
Right.
creating hospitality opportunities such as hotels, mixed use. A lot of these buildings now, they have the hotels and they have residential combined, from a rental perspective. So I really look forward to your continued growth. I do know that we have a large Hispanic realtor population over on the Philadelphia side. And I do hope that gets activated. This is the time. Our incoming president in January, Preston Moore, he's going to be the first Black president for the realtors on a state level. And one of his goals is to have a multicultural alliance. And so that's why I'm very happy that, we've had the opportunity to meet you. AREA, Emily and I are a part of that. Emily is the vice president. And so we're really looking forward to those opportunities. It will be pivotal. We also have a Black mayor, will be the first Black female mayor in Philadelphia, Sherelle Parker. And I think the diversity is going to be on her administrative desires. And I'm hoping that all the realtors, NAHREP, AREA, the Gay Association, I'm not sure what their proper terminology is, but that we can all come in alliance when it comes to issues legislatively on housing, and also support each other on our DEI initiatives. So I thank you so much for your time. Brittany, I'm gonna pass it back over to you.
All right, thanks so much, everyone, for participating. Feel free to send us any questions that you wanted to ask. Before I close it out, is there anybody else that did want to have a question or for Lewis? All right. Well, if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll get you in contact with today's speakers or our chair, Annette. Thank you again for joining us and have a great rest of your day and your weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Yeah,
See you guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.